The cameras may have finished rolling last season, but the drama is only getting started. Reports are spreading that Yandy Smith had a full-fledged mental breakdown while shooting sequences for the forthcoming season. And yes, Sheila it was. All recorded on video, individuals close to production allege it went much beyond tears. We're talking about real passion, voices rising. According to insiders, Yandy was driven to her breaking point by a furious fight with Rasheeda and none other than Jessica Dime. But this ain't the surface-level shade we're accustomed to. This was personal. Old scars were reopened, secrets were shared, and Yandy's calm crumbled in front of everyone. And the weirdest thing is that fans who've received sneak peeks from leaked tape are calling it the most devastating breakdown in love. In hip-hop history, people who were there claim even the producers were shaken, like should we keep shooting type rattled. So what actually occurred between these three, and why is everyone claiming this may affect Yandy's tale forever? Stay around because we're going to break out every dirty detail. It all began on a day that was supposed to be simple, a brief catch-up session, a couple of casual camera rolls, and then everyone would head home. But as Yandy went through the boutique lounge's doors, she carried more than just a Coach bag and a new Manny. She had weeks of simmering stress. She hadn't slept well and had been hearing murmurs and strange stares. Backstage murmurs as Rasheeda and Jessica Dime strategizing behind her back, critiquing her every move, the late-night text threads. She wasn't part of the storylines that maintained her name in the press, not for her accomplishments, but for other people's drama. She came early and informed her assistant she'd need a few minutes alone. She sat on the plush sofa, breathed long breaths of artificially perfumed air, and tried to settle the flutter in her tummy. The mech pack squeezed at her waist, reminding her she was on show. The team bustled about her like flies, putting up cameras on tripods, adjusting lighting, and testing audio. They didn't realize what storm they had unleashed. Producers exchanged discreet glances, noticing the shift but hoped it would pass. Today's script was intended to be lighthearted, Yandy conversing with Rasheeda about fashion and the forthcoming cast, tripped some casual conversation. But Yandy didn't appear like she wanted banter. She scrolled through her phone screen blankly, eyes twitching with fury. Every notification was muted, but she knew someone was talking. When Rasheeda eventually strolled in, she was serene and almost regal, clad in a white shirt and matching pants that contrasted Yandy's edgy streetwear. Rasheeda embraced the director, smiled pleasantly at the crew, then provided a quick nod to Yandy. No warmth, just acknowledgement. Hey, she murmured quietly, voice calm, hands folded. Yandy didn't react. Rasheeda took her seat, crossed her legs, and pretended everything was all right, although the air was dense and the tension prickled like static electricity. "We good?" Yandy said after a minute, tone deceptively casual. Rasheeda's brow raised. "Yeah," she answered slowly. "We good." But she didn't meet Yandy's little eyes. Despite that pause, Yandy pounced. "Really?" she asked, sitting up taller. Rasheeda's lips pinched as she said, I'm not sure what you're talking about," she added, leaning forward. "Don't play foolish and don't act like you own the facts." The director, still mute, put out a hand to signify rolling. Cameras recorded every twitch of her countenance just as Jessica Dime breezed in, whistling a melody with foam in hand. She slipped onto the couch next to Rasheeda, her ankle tapping. She looked at Yandy, then at Rasheeda with a sidelong, mischievous gaze. She asked, but her tone carried a challenge. Yandy held Jessica's gaze. "Just what I want to know why. Y'all think it's cute to talk about me behind my back?" she answered. Jessica shrugged. "What we want, yes," Yandy stood voice, rising but controlled, shattering the lounge's quiet veneer, "and you'll simply think I won't find out, that I won't hear the clips, quotations, and anecdotes. You'll feed two bloggers." Rasheeda moved, uncomfortable. "I'm not feeding anyone anything great," Yandy shot back. "Then explain why I keep hearing your names together. We spoke about my personal life as if it were entertainment, as if I didn't have a family to worry about." Finally, the director said, "Let us take a little break." But Yandy cut her off. "No breaks," she said. "We're done now." The room held its breath, cameras rolled grits, paused, assistants exchanged nervous glances. The only sound was Rasheeda's quick intake of breath. "I've been dealing with enough off-camera stress," Yandy said, voice heavy. "My son's been out of control at school. Demands on my time are outrageous. And on top of that, I have the pleasure of seeing people I thought I could trust gossiping about myself, so pardon me if I don't find it interesting." Jessica laughed a loud bark. "You're the issue, Yandy. You always make things about you, see?" Yi said, pointing. "That's exactly what you want." Rasheeda drew closer, her eyes flickering with remorse or terror that no one could tell. "Stop looking for villains where there aren't any," she muttered. "I never said anything about you." "But somebody did," Yandy responded, "and I don't have To have receipts to know it's you too, I feel it. With that, she crossed her arms head for a while. Everyone waited to see whether she'd weep up or walk out. But Yandy let out a small chuckle, bitter and stinging. I've been playing nice. For too long, I've been silent. I've been the mediator. But that stops today. She lifted her hand and indicated to the camera, this is genuine. This is unfiltered. She took a hesitant step back, fists on her hips, lashes trembling, and suddenly, the dam broke. She slumped into the sofa, her voice dissolving into actual cries. Tears poured down her cheeks, mascara running patterns like rivers. She covered her face in her hands, shoulders quivering. Jessica and Rasheeda froze in shame. With amazement on their faces, assistants muttered, "Oh, she's crying." A light crew member covered her mouth. The director screamed cut, but the tape continued rolling. Everyone knew a second camera had turned on to get the unedited moment from outside. Muffled noises trickled in, a runner shouting out producer, knocking on the door demanding what happened. Jessica stood uneasy, Rasheeda remained sat. Hands twisting within Yandy's sob, faded into silence. She sniffled and wiped her tears with the back of her palm before looking up, her eyes raw but determined. "I'm done," she said. "I can't keep doing this." She rose again, unsteady but resolute, and headed toward the exit. Her heels clicked, hitting the wooden floor behind her. Gossipy whispers began. "She's too sensitive, drama queen. Did you witness that breakdown outdoors?" Fresh air struck her face. She breathed deeply and closed her eyes. A buddy threw an arm around her and guided her to a nearby seat. She slumped down with her head in hands. No camera team followed. No scripts anymore, just quiet. And that breakdown, captured on camera and out in the open, became the flame that sparked every rumor, every alliance change, the response from fans, family, and the rest of the cast. That moment altered everything. Since no one realized how deep the betrayal went, or how hard Yandy would fight to preserve her truth, except one. Yandy's collapse sent shockwaves through the production offices, and as soon as the camera stopped rolling, things proceeded slowly within the both Rasheeda and Jessica Dime shared eyes that screamed loads of remorse, perplexity, and something darker. The awareness that they could have miscalculated. Rasheeda eventually rose, straightening her shirt with shaking hands and trying to speak, but her voice froze in her throat. Jessica whispered an apology that sounded empty even to her own ears. The director cleared her throat, eyes wide, and ordered for a break. Workers scurried to adjust lighting as producers crowded in a corner giving urgent reports to bosses. Everyone understood that Yandy sat on a seat beneath the July heat, arms wrapped about herself and still shaking. Her buddy sat beside her, giving water and tissues, speaking in hushed tones about ground rules. Block your socials. Tell no one else on set how you feel. Yandy nodded slowly, but her thoughts raced. She felt exposed, deceived, but oddly powerful. She recognized that her breaking point had also been her breaking free. The world would see her vulnerable side, but they would also see her power. Meanwhile, inside the lounge, the atmosphere was heavy with unpleasant tension. The team murmured about how difficult it was to shoot without cutting. Yandy's tears appeared, fresh, and Rasheeda's composure had crumbled. Someone said that the assistant producer who heard everything outside had a concealed camera capturing audio. Suddenly, every off-camera chat was possibly on film. Production staff shoved into corners to erase their phone footage before someone else might view it only a few minutes later. In a private meeting, executives and the showrunner met behind the set to discuss whether to include this breakdown in the first episode or reserve it for a mid-season cliffhanger. According to one producer, claimed it was too detrimental to Yandy's image, while others said it was precisely the type of raw reality that made the program a ratings magnet. The ultimate decision, Burr in the first episode, but impacted modified the context. Yandy would act strong at first, but sad recollections would cut in, providing maximum tension. That night, news traveled quickly on social media. Accounts linked to the program surged with conjecture. Images of the Yandy sobbing moment circulated with mysterious comments. Did Yandy just reveal Rasheeda and Jessica's falsehoods? Wait till you hear what they whispered. Fan forums heated up. Divisions developed. Team Yandy, Team Rasheeda, Team Dime. The following morning, popular topics showed Yandy breakdown outperformed even the show's official hashtag alerts. In her hotel room, Yandy glanced at her mirror, her makeup ruined. As a reminder of how serious everything had grown, she contacted her boss, voice serene but determined to have control. She sent a note to her PR, my tale. She decided to make a little video on her phone. Addressing supporters personally, she spoke gently, eyes watering, and said that the footage would broadcast. But the actual narrative was her experience as a mother. Businesswoman and wife facing struggles behind closed doors, she pledged honesty, vulnerability, and urged followers to join her beyond the difficulties she wrote about privately and forwarded the link to her staff. While Rasheeda and Jessica discussed, Rasheeda pastes Yandy's charges in her trailer. Jessica fell into the comfortable sofa, wondering what had gone wrong. Phone in hand, going through the popular postings about Rasheeda's treachery, she shuddered at the harsh comments. Asking her to apologize for her role, Rasheeda stopped pacing and looked at Jessica, says softly, "We need a plan." Jessica nodded and rubbed her temples. Wrote a united statement. "We regret how things transpired but never meant to hurt Yandy. Hope we may all recover together." They considered publishing it immediately. Concerned about seeming too reactive, the show's official account uploaded a cryptic teaser raw the next morning. Tune in to discover who has violated trust and caused an explosive meltdown. Comes out stronger. It teased Yandy's most difficult time but stated misconceptions will unravel. Fans interpreted every word. The cast was on edge, and Sandy's footage from her hotel went live at the same time on her own channels for the fans who've always backed me. It rapidly accumulated hundreds, thousands of views. Some complimented her courage, some dubbed it a publicity hoax, and shooting continued on site. And Yandy arrived with fresh resolve, his brow wrinkled and his gaze steeled. Rasheeda and Jessica welcomed her with uneasy grins. The cameras recorded stiff hugs and half-hearted niceties, asked them to shoot a reconciliation scenario in which Yandy accepts flowers from Rasheeda, Jessica, and offers a hug. But unease was evident as cameras lumbered on false grins and darting eyes. During a lunch break, Yandy met discreetly with her husband, whom she clutched his hand, voice low. She revealed how betrayed she felt and how she was forcing herself. That had been scary but also invigorating. He reminded her of her strength, advised her not to apologize for expressing emotion. She nodded, tears in her eyes again, but this time with tears of relief rather than anguish afterward. That afternoon, Rasheeda contacted Yandy with an apology she written in preparation. Rasheeda said while Yandy listened with arms folded and an unreadable look. Yandy reacted calmly when asked about friendship, loyalty, and the value of honesty. "I need you to show, not tell. Words are nothing without action." Rasheeda stopped, vowing to prove it, and Jessica stretched out with a weak voice, admitting she hadn't considered Yandy's demands. She attempted to frame it as harsh love, but Yandy interrupted and, "I don't need tough love when I'm already fighting my own battles," she stated forcefully. The conversation concluded with neither party completely satisfied. That evening, Yandy posted an emotional notebook piece that she never planned to reveal. She wrote about the duality being powerful and frail, about the expense of real-life stardom, and the hope that truth would eventually cure rifts. She closed the book and laid it away, determined to keep her serenity. Unbeknownst to Yandy, an invisible hand had grabbed her diary entry from her trailer. An assistant, intrigued and overwhelmed, felt it may make excellent promotional text, so they shot a picture and forwarded. The production buzz surrounding Yandy's hidden diaries accelerated overnight. Executives recognized a chance to selectively disclose data and increase curiosity. So before daybreak, pieces of her unedited thoughts surfaced on fan sites. When Yandy learnt of the leak in her blood, cold she faced the producers on set, voice barely above a whisper, with the weight of rage. "You promised this was safe," and she claimed it was. "Private," the showrunner stammered, but Yandy's look hushed him. Cameras rolled. Anyway, catching every second, fans woke up to new drama. Yandy Vis. Showrunner betrayal stories blared on social media, and the cast remained at work, rushed for the aftermath, and Yandy kept her ground, hurt sure, unbroken. She didn't know where the next conflict would fall. But one thing was, this season's conflict with Rasheeda was likely to alter her on every level. Jessica had only become uglier, and there was no going back now. Yandy, I exited the set that evening with a peculiar combination of relief and anxiety. The stage group supper had aired well at least on the surface, but underneath the stage grins and clinking drinks, the fissures were just becoming wider. The group drifted off to their own trailers and lifestyles, but the invisible currents of treachery and ambition continued tugging at them. By the following morning, social media was on fire with speculations and leaked audio. A footage taken from the assistant producer's secret recorder revealed Rasheeda's voice as clear as day, ridiculing Yandy's breakdown and wondering whether it was genuine or simply additional drama for the program. The snippet spread like wildfire on gossip sites and private group conversations alike. Admirers, they examined every intonation, every smear, and came to their own conclusions. Rasheeda cruel? Was the whole conflict simply a performance? Yandy's inbox supportive messages from fans, worrying calls from friends, and a few caustic ones accusing. She read through the flood of messages and accused herself of exaggerating for attention. Her chest tightened and tears threatened once again, but she remained steady. Was not going to give anybody the joy of witnessing her crack twice. She hammered out a hasty tweet, "I've faced real grief, not contrived, will always surpass rumors with that girl." Closed her phone and concentrated on the day. Shoot on set. The mood was thick. Cameras were everywhere, recording every sideways look. Rasheeda arrived first. She passed Yandy with her hair pushed back and an enigmatic face. Without saying anything, Jessica slid into cosmetics and read from the hallway. Many late-night scans of comments. The stylist gave her coffee. She hardly glanced up. Producers hovered anxious to film the tension, sowing their own seeds by asking leading questions. Hearing such sources, do you believe this battle is actual Yandy's scene? That day was going to be a lighthearted segment with her and Jessica dyeing tie-dye t-shirts. The irony wasn't lost on anybody. The designer bee presented vivid dyes and blank shirts and cameras rolled at first, moved with practiced ease, advising Jessica on folding methods and making jokes. But as Jessica stretched across, offer her a shirt, their fingers met, and Yandy froze, looking up. "Why'd you do it?" I said, my gaze fixed on Jessica's. Yandy questioned gently, her voice tinged with anguish. "Why'd?" Jessica hesitated, her bloodied fingers lingering above the pail. "I didn't let that clip get out," she responded, her voice shaking. "It wasn't me." But Yandy shook her head. "Someone leaked it." Her words hung. The cameras continued rolling, documenting every pulse. And Rasheeda emerged in the doorway, attracted by the sudden tension she took in the situation. Yandy stood stiff, Jessica holding a garment drenched in yellow dye. The assistant director, Rasheeda, paused in mid-call, crossed her arms. "Maybe he too can solve this off." "Camera," she murmured, but her tone sliced deeper than any blade Yandy spun. Her question was, "Did you leak it?" she asked. Rasheeda's eyes narrowed. "Don't put that on me." But Yandy pressed, "Because I knew you had access." Jessica's face palled, she backed away, dripping thighs into the floor. The crew finally blinked, and someone cried, "Cut!" But no one moved to tidy up. They were too occupied watching the drama develop at that hot moment. Yandy felt a wave of rage, had not felt before. She seized the carton of colors, pushed it forward, and the jars clattered to the ground, spreading colors over the hardwood. "I've had enough." Jessica was deafened by the hush that ensued after she yelled. Rasheeda exchanged panicked looks as the set assistant crept nearer to retrieve the shattered glass. But Yandy disregarded it and rushed out, leaving rainbow streaks. Her footsteps hammered as she reached the soundstage, ultimately exploding. Into the hallway, a cast member was brought in. Yandy sat in the improvised booth with the lights lowered and said, I'm weary of not being heard, of pretending everything is okay when it isn't, and of watching the people I trusted utilize the camera." Lingered on her face, capturing every honest feeling. Rasheeda's confessional was unvarnished. She sat grimly poised and read, "A well-planned message. I regret how my comments were received. I never intended to harm Yandy. I appreciate her and respect her strength." Her tone was steady. Practice technique contrasted strikingly with Yandy's raw edges. Jessica's chance came last. Fiddled with the microphone, cleared her throat, and offered a shaky apology. "I know I let my ambition blind me, and I'm sorry for Yandy's anguish." The camera recorded her vulnerability, but many viewers thought it was half-hearted during the confessionals. Shown that week, viewers noticed the juxtapositions vividly. Reality, Rasheeda's polished regret, Jessica's frightened sorrow. On the internet, debates ensued about authenticity, allegiance, and who the actual enemy was. Producers bask in the ratings, surge, praising themselves on the back for recording genuine emotion. But behind scenes, the rift had only increased. Spurred by both support and Rasheeda, hurt by criticism, withdrew into rage. Tighter circles pondering her next move. Jessica, terrified by reaction, is questioned whether she had survived the storm. As the sun sank over Atlanta, the cast boarded their trailers, each bearing the weight of the day's disclosures. The spilled color had soiled more than just the floor. It had colored every connection, every purpose, and with some of the truth now public, the others hid in the shadows waiting for the ideal opportunity to burst. Since peace in their world, a frail illusion and drama were the only constants. And the next twist had already in action, and none of them were prepared when the next secret came to light. It was the type of morning that Yandy should not have felt routine when she arrived to the set with her usual elegance. The crew, welcoming her with smiles, photos set for a low-pressure sit-down. But from the time she walked into the quiet Atlanta lounge, she felt the weight of every whisper she had been ignoring. Her assistant lingered close, silent and tight, as Yami stroked the contour of her coffee cup. Attempting to settle herself, she looked at the beautiful mirror behind the camera setup, revealed her reflection, framed by subtle ring lights, and wondered how many versions of herself were already out there on social media, examined by admirers and critics. Behind-the-scenes gossip was all about the supposed breakup between Yandy, Rasheeda, and Jessica Dime. Production helpers exchanged fervent looks, guessing if today's discussion would be an olive branch. Yandy's pulse hammered as she sat on the velvet sofa knees. With her hands clasped together and neatly folded on her lap, she seemed tranquil on camera. Perfectly curled hair, immaculate makeup, yet underneath every beat of her pulse blasted recollections of late-night texts. She overheard in bits of private. She overheard a chat when Rasheeda entered wearing a silky white jacket. Yandy's breath caught Rasheeda, who wore thin pants that conveyed calm assurance, tossed her hair, smiled sweetly at the team, and gave a curt to Yandy no. There was no warmth, just a single lifted eyebrow, as the quiet stretched between Rasheeda, seated across from Yandy, crossing her legs with grace. Producers called rolling in action, believing that rehearsed inquiries about fashion partnerships would ease cameras focused on Rasheeda's lips as she spoke about the newest boutique debut. But her eyes remained. Yami swallowed, flipping to Yandy and evaluating her reaction. She had practiced neutral remark on the show's upcoming season, but something within her broke. She leaned forward, voice placid yet tinged steel. "I hear there's been a lot of chatter about me," she remarked. Rasheeda's grin wavered, and the crew smothered murmurs. "What do you mean?" Rasheeda replied, voice even. Yandy's gaze sharpened. "You know precisely what I mean. The lunch you had with Jessica Dime evidently was more about my personal life than yours." Business ideas time appeared to slow. Rasheeda's breath caught. "I don't know, what are you talking about?" she said, her eyes flashing to the cameras. "We just talked boutique strategy." And Yami shook her head. "Stop it. You two have been conspiring, saying things, and leaking tales. Quotations for bloggers making me but appear unstable." She squeezed her lips together, fighting the trembling forming in her throat. Jessica Dime's sachet and foam hand, ignorant to the undertone of animosity, heating the air. She greeted a cheerful hello to everyone before halted when she observed Yandy's position, and she didn't flinch. She met Jessica's stare coolly. "Steadfast, glad you could join," she whispered gently. Jessica's lips twitched. "What is going on now?" she inquired, her tone dripping with false worry. "Precisely what's going on," Yandy answered, voice calm but forceful. "I'm exhausted of hearing murmurs about how I fake it for the camera, how I'm too theatrical. I can't manage pressure. Did you ever believe I was sobbing because I'm human?" Her words fell like stones. Still water, the team repositioned awkwardly lights, boba bum wires, and somewhere a mic clicked. Rasheeda opened her lips, then closed it. Shooting a glance, Jessica responded, "Don't come at me with receipts if you feel that way." Rumors. Yandy's chest squeezed. She stood slowly, pulling her chair back. "I've got more than enough," she replied, her voice tinged with agony. "And I'm done pretending I didn't know." The camera crew exchanged eyes. They felt riches, but at what cost? The director hesitated. To cut the lights remained on Yandy. Heart thundered and tears welled up in her. Her eyes were raw, vulnerable, and ferociously alive. And she trembled, breath, and said, "For weeks, I've been keeping it in. Smiling in public and telling my kids I'm okay, but behind the scenes, I feel like I'm drowning. I'm operating a company, managing my family, and supporting my spouse. What you receive in exchange is gossip and shade." Jessica sneered. "Maybe if you quit playing the victim, you'd be less of a target." Rasheeda's stare flickered with remorse or humiliation, and Yandy couldn't tell which was tighter. As tears slipped her control, she pushed her fingers on her cheeks. "Trying to stop the flood? You think I want any of this on video? You think I like being the one who breaks?" She shook her head, voice cracking. "This is not an act." The team held their breath as the lights reflected on Yandy's gleaming. Yandy fell into her cheeks, letting out a faint sob that the cameras did not capture. Chair shoulders fell. She buried her face with her hands for a heartbeat. There was stillness, and Rasheeda stood, stretching a timid hand toward Yandy. "I'm sorry," she muttered, barely audible. Jessica looked torn, moving forward but halting. Short Yandy dropped her hands, eyes hot and raw, and peered Rasheeda's extended arm. She halted and slowly rose, stumbling slightly. If the weight of her emotions weighed down on her without saying anything, she turned and went toward the exit. The velvet, with the curtain swinging behind her, A production assistant hovered with a kind voice. Yandy, do you mean 1 minute? She didn't react outdoors. Sunlight flooded in harsh in contrast to the tense mood inside. Her pal waited just inside the threshold, arms extended, and Dandy slumped into their arms, tears streaming freely, now sob after sob, the type that everything within, no cameras following. She let herself melt, yielding every ounce of control she kept so long. The future ahead seemed unknown, but in that vulnerability, she discovered a searing clarity that she would not allow anybody others define her reality within. Rasheeda and Jessica shared a heavy gaze. Remorse, maybe they'd gone too far. Maybe the cameras had recorded more than they bargained for. Producers yelled cut, but the moment would not end for Yandy, the performance, or surely for the spectators who have a front row ticket to her breaking free. This wasn't the climax of Yandy's narrative. It was the opening act. The tension between Yandy, Rasheeda, and Jessica